Robert Kiyosaki, a synonymous name who predicted the financial guru who accurately predicted the 2008 economic crisis, has showed up with more predictions. Well, brace yourself because he sounds the alarm again. With an unstable economy, plummeting interest rates, and threats of nuclear war, Kiyosaki is warning that the worst is yet to come. You are watching Growth Mentality. Kiyosaki has the plan to help you act now and avoid being wiped out. So, gear up to take control of your financial future. But before that, a sub to the channel would be fortune-changing. Surviving an economic crash can be challenging, and it's essential to look beyond the microeconomy to understand the bigger picture. Unfortunately, many people are stuck in their microeconomies, and they fail to see what's happening in the real world. They have a false sense of security that America will always bounce back, but the reality is that the macroeconomy is collapsing around us. Richard Duncan has been warning about the economic crisis for some time, and he believes that the dollar is in trouble. The financial system itself is in crisis, and we could be facing the destruction of trillions of dollars of wealth. Capitalism became corrupt when we stopped backing the dollar with gold, which unleashed an explosion of credit. To survive the economic crash, it's crucial to think beyond the microeconomy and invest in assets that will hold their value during a crisis. People should focus on financial education, seek expert advice, and invest in precious metals such as gold and silver. It's also necessary to be prepared for the worst-case scenario and have a contingency plan. The road ahead may be challenging, but we can get through it by being informed and taking the necessary steps. Credit growth has been the driving force behind our economy's growth, with the total debt in the United States exploding from $1 trillion in 1964 to $91 trillion. Our economy has become addicted to credit growth to avoid a crisis, but nowadays, credit contracts when adjusted for inflation. This poses a severe problem for our economic system, which Robert Kiyosaki calls creditism rather than capitalism. Is your current investment strategy equipped to handle the financial crisis that Robert Kiyosaki predicts? Because the economy is in a dangerous state.
Special guest today is a longtime friend and a man of credible knowledge. This is Jim Records. He's the author of his newest book is Sold Out. But I came across Jim when I read his book, Currency Wars. And man, are we in a currency war today. Another thing that Jim said was that, the avalanche is all it needs, that last snowflake. And then what happened after 2008, what they did was they kept dropping interest rates like this, but the debt went up like this. And then we had crypto invented in between that time. And the last snowflake hit, it was called Sam Bankman-Fried or something, FTX and FTT and all this. So Jim's book, Currency Wars, is as prescient as it comes. So we're going to do, what do you see in 2023? I want to warn people on something is, when I was a kid, we always said, don't trust anybody over 30. In this environment, I don't trust anybody under 30. And the reason for that is all they've known is a rising market. And as you get old enough, markets go up and markets come down. And my concern is, I'm not saying it's Jim's opinion, but I think we're heading in for the roughest markets we've ever had because Ben Bernanke, the Nobel Peace Prize winner or Nobel Economics Prize, he raises interest rates, the biggest bubble in world history. And when that air comes out, we're in serious trouble. So this is one more way of saying that under 30 people, all they know is don't fight the Fed, buy the dip, real estate always goes up and all this stuff. I think those days, as they say in Hawaii, are aloha. I think we're going into a very rough economy.
The economy in a dangerous state. Many people are stuck in their microeconomies and fail to see the bigger picture, such as systemic inflation. The world is facing various economic challenges, such as the Nord Stream 2 pipeline being torpedoed, the war in Ukraine, the crash of the English pound, and the severe trouble facing Japan's yen. North Korea has even fired rockets at Japan. On top of this, the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are facing their own economic struggles. It's clear that printing money isn't a sustainable solution to our problems and will only backfire on everyone. Understanding the bigger picture and seeking expert advice to make informed decisions during these uncertain times is crucial. It's also essential to be prepared for the worst-case scenario and have a contingency plan in place. How do interest rates impact the economy and your finances? And why are plummeting interest rates such a cause for concern? Let's delve in. Interest rates plummeting. The UK government was facing the need to borrow significant additional money, just as the Bank of England planned to sell government bonds purchased through its quantitative easing program. This created a situation where England's interest rates on government bonds doubled within 2 weeks, which is a rare occurrence. Usually, this would cause the currency to appreciate, but the English pound started to drop rapidly in this case. The swings in both the currency and the interest rates were so severe and unprecedented that UK pension funds, which had hedged their positions with derivatives contracts, were on the brink of bankruptcy. This situation could have affected the English people relying on these pension funds for their financial security. The Bank of England is similar to the Federal Reserve in the US, and their actions can significantly impact their respective economies. The situation in the UK serves as a warning that even major economies with stable governments and financial systems can be vulnerable to economic shocks and fluctuations. But what happened in 1971? How did the US dollar become so influential in the global economy? Stay tuned to find the answers and subscribe for more.
So one more thing is when I watch YouTube now, which I didn't have growing up, there are more experts on YouTube now who are full of shit. I can't believe the crap they're putting out there. So if you're cruising YouTube and you're looking for some credible source out there, you got to be careful who your sources are, because you can be a YouTube genius, but be another Sam Bankman-Fried, whatever his name is. So the reason I trust Jim Rickards, he's over 30. He has gone through hell. And he's gone through hell. We have experience in all this. But the most important reason for me bringing Jim on board, he is a credible source. He's worked for the CIA, the Defense Department, and all this. He's been part of one of the biggest real market crashes on long-term capital management. And all of those things give us the most priceless value in education. It's called experience. And so Jim is on board. We're going to do 4 shows together. What do you see in 2023? Jim is a visionary. He's a futurist. He can see. I follow his advice. But I caution you, just because somebody is on YouTube making claims of what they can do for you, be very, very careful. So when I have a question, I call Jim a friend. I can call him and I can get credible, what I say, factual plus depth of information that most people under 30 do not have. So we're going to do 4 of these series together, back to back. What do you see in 2023? And Jim, welcome to the Rich Dad program. And as I said, I value our friendship, but more important, I value your experience and your depth of knowledge, because we're older than 30. So.
Well, thank you, Robert. Great to be with you, and I appreciate the kind words, and I'll reciprocate. You're one of the people I look to and follow your work and follow your shows and broadcasts and a lot else besides. So it's a great relationship, and I am definitely over 30, so I'll confirm that.
Yeah. So what? You have so many. I've read your books. You have so many things that are priceless. Like you were doing ding ding or something. It's about how they program you for little bells and stuff like this, and on your, if your key is not, your seat belt's not on, and all this stuff. I'm going, holy mackerel! I mean, you look at everything from such micro and macro, how we're being programmed to be pawns of the system.
The dollar crisis. Since 1998, when the FED had to bail out the hedge fund, TCM, there has been a problem of continuously printing more money to avoid a depression or to bail out failing financial institutions. This approach has the potential downside of causing inflation, which raises the question of who will assist central banks like the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve, and the Bank of Japan if they face difficulties in the future. This has been discussed in books such as Currency Wars and The Dollar Crisis, which address the corruption of capitalism and the consequences of relying on continuous credit growth. Central banks have had a relatively easy time over the last 30 years because globalization has been deflationary, pushing down prices and keeping inflation rates low. This allowed central banks to print money without causing high inflation rates. By buying government bonds, they were able to finance government spending, stimulate the economy, and keep interest rates low. However, globalization is now going into reverse, with supply chain bottlenecks and geopolitical events like Russia's invasion of Ukraine pushing up energy and food prices, leading to a surge in inflation rates. Central banks are now faced with the challenge of dealing with inflation and supporting the economy. If they print more money, it could worsen inflation. But if they don't, credit could contract, and the economy could spiral into crisis. The Bank of Japan is committed to keeping interest rates low. The current situation raises the question of who will bail out the central banks if they face a crisis. Over the last 3 decades, central banks have benefited from globalization, which kept inflation rates low and interest rates at a minimum. However, the pandemic and other factors have caused a reversal in globalization, leading to supply chain bottlenecks and increased energy prices. As a result, inflation rates have surged to levels that central banks have not dealt with in 35 years. If central banks increase their money supply to stimulate the economy, it could cause inflation to spiral out of control. On the other hand, not providing enough credit could lead to an economic crisis. The Bank of Japan has committed to keeping interest rates low, which may lead to their currency's depreciation. The recent pipeline explosions have caused a ripple effect in the global economy, but what exactly is the connection between pipelines and our financial system? Pipelines being blown up. The speaker believes that Russia may have been behind recent pipeline explosions. These pipelines were not pumping gas anymore, so Russia was not benefiting from them. However, by blowing them up, Russia sends a message and creates economic instability for itself. Additionally, the speaker is concerned about recent nuclear weapon threats from world leaders. Will China's high productivity lead to the downfall of other economies? Is the 60-40th strategy just a ticking time bomb for investors? And most importantly, are you prepared to take action and protect yourself from a looming financial crash? China's high productivity. China's ability to produce goods at low prices due to its high productivity has significantly contributed to keeping inflation rates low in other countries. The United States, for example, has benefited from China's productivity by importing low-priced goods, including pharmaceuticals, electronics, and textiles. However, this has created a false sense of security among many Americans who have come to believe that their house is their biggest asset. The truth is that housing prices are highly volatile, and the housing market has been known to crash, leaving many homeowners with mortgages that are worth more than their homes. A decline in 401ks has accompanied the recent drop in the housing market, the retirement savings plans that many Americans rely on. In fact, many middle-class Americans are now facing financial difficulties because their savings and investments have lost value. This is why it's important to understand that a home is not an asset, despite what many people believe. Instead, it is a liability that requires maintenance and expenses such as property taxes, insurance, and repairs. In addition, the traditional 60-40 split between equities and bonds that Wall Street has long recommended is no longer effective in mitigating financial risk. Both stocks and bonds are dropping in value, leaving investors with diminishing returns. As a result, it's essential to find alternative ways of investing money and protecting one's assets. Kiyosaki's warning about an impending financial crash should not be taken lightly. It's crucial to take action now to protect yourself and your finances before it's too late. Don't wait for the next market crash before you start preparing. Invest wisely and take steps to secure your financial future. Remember to subscribe to our channel to stay updated on the latest financial news. Let us know in the comments what steps you're taking to protect your finances.